The clock on the wall struck 11:58 p.m., and the silence inside my apartment felt louder than thunder. My birthday had almost passed without a single visitor, without a single phone call that truly mattered. The tiny cake I had bought for myself sat untouched on the kitchen table beside one lonely candle that had already melted into wax. I had convinced myself that loneliness was something people eventually got used to, but that night proved I had been lying to myself for years. Then, exactly at midnight, 3 slow knocks echoed through my front door. I wasn't expecting anyone. My heart raced as I opened it, only to find my ex-wife's elderly mother standing there in the cold night, holding a worn-out gift box close to her chest. Tears filled her tired eyes as she whispered, "Your present is something my daughter wanted you to have, but she never found the courage to give it herself." Before we continue, if you believe kindness, forgiveness, and second chances still exist in this world, please take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Kind Heart Stories for more emotional stories that remind us humanity is never truly lost. For a few seconds, I couldn't move. My former mother-in-law, Margaret, had always treated me like family, even after the divorce. Time had placed distance between us, but respect had never disappeared. She looked older than I remembered. Her shoulders had bent beneath the weight of years, and her face carried the quiet sadness of someone who had cried too many nights in silence. I invited her inside, where the tiny apartment felt even smaller because of the emotions neither of us knew how to express. She placed the faded box on the table next to my untouched birthday cake and simply stared at it, as if opening it would release memories too painful to face. 5 years earlier, my marriage with Emily had fallen apart, not because we stopped loving each other, but because life slowly convinced us that love wasn't enough. I had buried myself in endless overtime shifts trying to build a secure future, while she desperately needed someone present in the moments that mattered most. Neither of us cheated. Neither of us hated the other. We simply became strangers sharing the same address until one day she quietly packed her belongings and left. We signed the divorce papers with tears instead of anger, promising to remember the good years. But promises often fade faster than pain. Since then, birthdays had become reminders of everything I had lost. Friends gradually disappeared into their own busy lives. My parents had passed away years before. My apartment became a place where silence lived permanently. Every evening followed the same routine of work, frozen dinners, television that nobody watched, and sleep that never truly rested my heart. I told myself I preferred being alone because admitting otherwise would have hurt too much. Margaret finally opened the box with trembling hands. Inside rested dozens of neatly tied letters, a leather-bound journal, several old photographs, and a silver wristwatch I had once admired but never purchased because we couldn't afford unnecessary luxuries during our marriage. Each item looked ordinary until she explained that Emily had been collecting them for years. Every birthday after our divorce, she had written me a letter but never mailed it. Every Christmas, she added another page to the journal describing memories she wished she could relive. Every anniversary of our wedding, she placed another photograph inside the box instead of throwing it away like everyone expected. I stared at the letters in disbelief. Margaret quietly explained that Emily had passed away 3 months earlier after losing a long battle with a rare illness she had kept hidden from almost everyone. She hadn't wanted pity. She hadn't wanted to interrupt my life. She only wanted me to be happy, even if happiness no longer included her. Before she died, she had asked her mother to wait until my birthday before delivering the box because she believed birthdays should always carry hope instead of sorrow. My hands shook as I unfolded the first letter. Emily's handwriting instantly transported me back to our tiny first apartment, where she used to leave handwritten notes inside my lunchbox. Her words weren't filled with regret or blame. Instead, she thanked me for every ordinary moment we had shared. She thanked me for teaching her how to believe in herself. She admitted that although our marriage ended, she had never stopped hoping I would eventually forgive both of us for failing to save what once made us so happy. Each letter revealed another chapter of her heart. One described how she still smiled whenever she passed the little coffee shop where we had our first date. Another confessed she often imagined accidentally meeting me in a grocery store just to see whether I still laughed the same way. She wrote about birthdays she spent wondering whether I had anyone celebrating with me. Reading those pages felt like hearing the voice I thought I had forgotten forever. Margaret watched quietly before telling me something that completely changed my understanding of the past. Emily had never blamed me for the divorce. In her private journal she admitted she had also made mistakes by hiding her fears instead of sharing them. She believed they had both spent too much energy protecting each other from disappointment until honesty disappeared completely. Love had survived, but communication hadn't. Hours passed unnoticed as I read every letter. Outside, the darkness slowly surrendered to the first hints of dawn. For the first time in years, my apartment no longer felt empty. Every page reminded me that even relationships that end can leave behind extraordinary kindness. Emily could have filled those letters with bitterness, yet she chose gratitude. She could have erased every memory, yet she carefully preserved them for someone she knew might need them one day. Before leaving, Margaret handed me one final envelope labeled, "Open Last." Inside was a simple birthday card written only weeks before Emily passed away. She wished me happiness, even if it came from people she would never meet. She encouraged me not to spend the rest of my life punishing myself for mistakes that both of them had made together. She ended by asking one final favor: whenever my birthday arrived, I should never spend it alone again because life was too precious to celebrate in silence. Those words settled deep inside my heart. After Margaret left, I carried the untouched cake onto the apartment balcony. Instead of wishing for the impossible, I made a promise. I would begin saying yes to invitations instead of hiding behind excuses. I would reconnect with old friends. I would volunteer at the neighborhood community center where lonely seniors gathered every weekend. Most importantly, I would stop believing my story had ended with a divorce. The months that followed slowly transformed my life. Volunteering introduced me to people carrying invisible burdens much heavier than my own. I realized loneliness was everywhere, hidden behind polite smiles and ordinary routines. Sharing conversations, delivering meals, and simply listening became the greatest gifts I could offer. Surprisingly, those acts healed me as much as they helped others. Every birthday afterward became something entirely different. Instead of sitting alone, I invited neighbors, elderly volunteers, and anyone who had nowhere else to go. We celebrated together with homemade food, laughter, old songs, and stories that reminded everyone they still mattered. Emily's letters remained safely stored in the same gift box, but their purpose had changed. They no longer represented what I had lost. They reminded me that love can continue changing lives long after people are gone. Before we reach the end, if this story has touched your heart in any way, please like this video, share it with someone who may be feeling alone today, and subscribe to Kind Heart Stories so together we can continue spreading compassion through stories that matter. Special request, please leave a comment telling us one person you would never want to leave without saying, "Thank you," or "I forgive you." Your words may encourage someone else to do the same before it's too late. As I look back on that unforgettable birthday, I no longer remember the loneliness that filled my apartment before midnight. I remember the gentle knock that changed everything. Sometimes the greatest present isn't wrapped in beautiful paper or tied with perfect ribbons. Sometimes it arrives carrying old letters, painful memories, and the courage to finally let your heart heal. That midnight knock didn't bring back the life I had lost, but it gave me something even more valuable, a reason to keep living with kindness, to treasure every relationship while there is still time, and to believe that even broken hearts can become homes for hope once again.